All right. Good morning. The day after the concert. I think it's a pretty good turnout for that. How many saw Fleetwood last night? Oh, a few of you. Good. So my name's Kevin Hill. It's not on the slide because the bulk of this presentation is actually given by Tommy and Kyle from Google. And I'm just going to do a little bit of setup and then hand it over to them to talk about some hard problems they were solving for Google. So what's the next slide? Right. Forward-looking statement. Everyone's seen this slide. Basically saying Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Make your purchasing decisions on what we have in the product today, not any future-facing statements we might make in this presentation. But here's just the speaker shot slide. We're going to do our intros as we kind of get up on the stage a bit more. As I had mentioned, I'm the product manager for Lightning Web Components in the Aura framework. How many people have used that in Lightning? Few people. How many people are still trying to get to Lightning? Okay. So the way I talk about the work I do is anything you click on in Lightning and you get any sort of error or bug or something that doesn't work, it's my fault, right? Shane can attest to that. He emails me every now and again and lets me know how we can make things better. You can find me on Twitter. It's Kevin J. Hill. Feel free to yell at me, tell me what's wrong, tell me what doesn't work, tell me what's missing from our documentation. Today, though, we're going to focus on something that, I'll get to that. Welcome to Dreamforce. We're going to focus a bit on some unique problems that Google solved. I was able to go and meet with Kyle and Tommy earlier in the year, and I looked at what they were doing internally. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. They have this amazing Salesforce instance that supports a phenomenal number of teams with, they'll talk about how few resources. And really, if you listen to the Lightning keynote, I was doing the demos in the keynote. And we had one new feature that we showed called dynamic forms. Did everyone get to see dynamic forms? Yeah. So we're always introducing more configurability to the Salesforce product. And it's great, giving admins more power to go and solve problems. Like dynamic forms should prevent you from having to write a ton of Visualforce code and do customizations you've done in the past because now it's all configurable visibility rules on the field level. But what Google's going to talk about today is even going a bit beyond just this level of configurability and actually getting to configurability that's available for end users. And that's what got me really excited about this presentation. And so without too much further ado, what I'm going to do is introduce Tommy Khan to take it from here and talk about some of the core problems.
Thank you, Kevin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dreamforce. This is my fifth Dreamforce. Still the best, most enjoyable tech conference to me. So today, as Kevin mentioned, we are here to really show some, showcase some, we think with some cool things we build on top of, Salesforce, especially Lightning, to really solve our, challenges really for constantly fast-growing needs for B2B high-touch partner support. So let's jump into that. So what do we do as an organization in Google? So Google today is quite a big company. We do have a lot of teams using Salesforce for different purposes. So the organization we are in here is that GTech users and products. We provide horizontal B2B and B2C support to both external stakeholders like a user, you guys, like advisors, also internal stakeholders like sales team, marketing team, and operational teams. So just some examples that we as Google has a lot of so-called product areas. So one example is payments. You can see we have a lot of external partner to work with us, like financial institutions, like in-store payments, also like API integrations. For Geo, we have Maps, we have Reserve with Google and Google My Business. And for travel, we have flights. Actually, a lot of major US airlines, they are a customer or partner with Google to leverage Google's technology. And we also have hotel ads. So we can see we as an organization is by design is tasked to really provide a lot of support for a lot of products, but also a lot of products is coming online. We don't even know because Google constantly innovates, and we also like to deprecate those products not super successful. So it's moving very fast. So how do we think excellent CRM solution really means for our needs, which is for high-touch B2B partner support, but also we don't even know what kind of products or product area as Google tomorrow, next year, we're going to start. I think we just heard that we're going to start offer savings, a checking account through Google Pay, right? So, so this is how we learned through a couple of years journey of CRM for B2B partner support is that we really need to strike the best balance through these three areas. The first one's flexibility. Because the business needs is moving very fast, we have great engineering in Google, innovating great new products, new features every day. So we really need to be at that speed, to not slow down our technical innovation as Google. So it has to be business friendly, user friendly, and change friendly. The next one is scalability, right? So as I mentioned, that we are supporting today's 30 teams, but next year could be 100 operations from different products. So we do need to really scale up without adding linear developer resources with our team. Actually, we're a pretty small team. So the last one is, is for granted, but it's not easy to really achieve reliability, right? So we have so many teams around the cloud, around the world, to really use our tool day in and day out. We really need to keep it up and perform very well for all of our users. So that's why, in short, we do, as a team, we do need to really provide a good CRM solution to really support those kind of, we call unknown 10x coming needs for B2B support in a fast and scalable way. How do we do that? I think this is the answer we got eventually through our 5-year journey. So we call it MOM. It's not going back to home to ask mom help. It's really a multi-tenancy built on top of multi-tenancy. What do we mean by this is that you can see we chose to build a shared single Salesforce org for a lot of different product areas needs for B2B support. Instead of start a new Salesforce org every time for different product line, because we think that actually will slow it down, also impact affect in consistency, impact the speed of innovation. So, which is a hard problem for us to as a Salesforce engineer team to really figure out how do we use a single shared Salesforce org to really support. We don't even know what kind of product was coming on down the way for B2B support. So as a result, we really build a so-called custom-made configuration layer on top of Salesforce. That's what we call this layers is our own multi-tenancy configurability. So you can see there's roughly 3 parts. The lower part is really integrations. We do need to connect our Salesforce org with a lot of our internal systems tools to make sure the information flow back and forth for different purposes, like data storage, like internal issue tracker tools. The second layer is we call platform features, which is really those features we built in Salesforce for the core CRM use case for B2B support, like entity management, including account 360, contact management, workflow management, and also support interactions. And the top one is really the closest layer we built, close to our business team. You can see we have a Google Pay team, we have Flies team, Google Photo teams that keep growing, right? So at a high level, their needs is similar, which is high-touch B2B support. But as I mentioned, each team has really unique type of needs, especially when they are different phase. product is very nascent, some products pretty mature. How do we really support these? Now it's 30, next year maybe hundreds, different teams on one shared Salesforce org. So next, I think this is our kind of, 5-year CRM journey from 10,000 feet view. I won't go through everything, but the first year is really about proof the concept to say, we chose Salesforce. Is Salesforce really a good platform for us to build on top of it for this kind of constantly growing needs? The second year, we started to enhance Salesforce, especially Service Cloud, like we built our own email-based threading to really customize the case behavior out of box Salesforce. The third year, we started really kind of build our own productivity features like Chrome extension to really boost our agents' productivity. But also, because our developer team is growth, we need to set up a good developer process and cycles. And last year, it's a very key year that we eventually build a couple of core piece of our configurability capability, which is like the if this then that rule engine to really give the power of configuration from Salesforce admin to our business user teams. So for those kind of with this, we can let our Salesforce or business teams, they can directly customize without our involvement. And this year is really about scale this model to support more teams. I think we are ready to take the next 100 B2B support operations from any product area in Google. But also, as you guys know, switch from Classic to Lightning is also a big step, and we are very excited to announce that we achieved that for our work. Which is a big step because now we don't really need to think about classic assets. However, we're still on our way to really migrate or re-implement all of our Aura assets into Lightning Web Components. By the way, as I mentioned, we're a pretty small team. So to do this, I think 75% of our full-time team is here. And we have a couple of dev ops developers. So that's why it's also kind of push us to really think about how do we empower our business team with the configurability without growing our team's resource. With that, I will hand over to Kyle from our team to really give you a deep dive, go through about how we implement this kind of magic by using some examples.
Thanks, Tommy. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming out. I'm very excited to be here. I appreciate everyone that had to miss at least part of President Obama's talk in order to get here. Much appreciated. Thank you. So my name's Kyle. I've been at Google for just about 2.5 years now, and that's also the exact amount of time I've been working on Salesforce. I had no Salesforce experience before joining Google, and I didn't even know I was actually being put onto a Salesforce team until my first day, pretty much. And so it's been a very interesting journey that I have actually really enjoyed. So beforehand, I had some experience in front-end frameworks like React or Angular, and so learning Aura for Lightning was kind of tedious and difficult, but it's what we wanted to do, and so I did it, and we have kind of presented in the past on some of our Aura customizations. But with Lightning Web Components, I'm extremely excited because it allows us to build these more scalable and lightweight apps that are going to be performing faster and easier for developers with more front-end framework experience to build right away. And so I've been working with Tommy on really helping shape how we are leveraging the Lightning framework and how we're delivering excellent solutions to our users using our custom development. So a little bit of background on why we like Lightning and why we want to invest in Lightning is that it really has 3 core tenets that we follow, and we think that it really enables us. First, Lightning is fast, it's flexible, and it's scalable. For being fast, it's fast for us to develop on. There's tons of existing components that you can leverage that allows you to get things out as fast as you can so that your users can see that business improvement. The single-page application also works very quickly, allowing users to do and accomplish the tasks they need to do very quickly. Then lastly, the rich user interface allows them to have a better understanding of where everything is on the page and how to actually interact with it in order to accomplish what they need. Next, it's flexible. Now, our custom components can be built in ways that they can be used over and over again so that you can build one generic component that allows you to do faster development in the future. The components can be designed to work in multiple use cases, whether it takes an entire page or can fit in just one column of a flexi page. And then lastly, record pages and configuration, not solutions can be app and use case specific through different flags and different things you can set. And lastly, it's scalable. Our components can be placed anywhere on the page. They can scale to the device or the viewport. You can build either single components that you just drop on a flexi page, or we've also built full-blown single-page applications all within Lightning Console. And lastly, we can build our components to be configurable by admins so that they have the ability to change how that behavior works for our users as their business needs evolve. So now I want to actually go into our Lightning Snapshot and how we're leveraging LWCs. Talking with some people in the audience, I know you were kind of hoping for some maybe code or deep dives. We're not going to quite get into code today, but please feel free to ask any code-related questions at the end of the presentation. But what I want to do is walk you through 3 business problems that we built, or 3 business problems that our users were facing, and how we were able to build solutions to meet the needs of our users and fix those problems. So the first problem is that opening records in Salesforce can be tedious. Who here knows at least 3 different ways of actually getting to a record in Salesforce? Exactly. And sometimes it can be really difficult to know exactly where you need to go. So first, of course, you need to navigate to your instance. And then you have a couple different options from there. You can either use the global search in order to, first you have to focus it, 1 click. Then you have to do some key presses. Then if your search result happens to show up, you're in luck and it's 1 more click. Or you have to hit enter and then you have to scroll through a large page and find it. Or if you know what object it is, you can go directly to list view. If it's in your default list view, great, only 1 more click. If not, probably 2 or 3 more clicks until you can actually get to where you're trying to go. Lastly, you can be shared a URL directly. However, that URL has an 18-character ID that doesn't actually tell you what record you're going to. Not very useful, not very easy for our users to understand where they're going. And so we thought that we could build a better way of users knowing what record they're going to or being able to get directly to the record when they know exactly where they need to go. And so we thought we could solve this with Lightning. With Lightning Web Components, you have access to URL parameters, and you can create custom URL parameters. And we thought this would be perfect for us to leverage in order to build a new solution for navigating directly to known records. So introducing our first solution is short links, which are dynamic URLs to save our users time. These dynamic short links are built by us so that our users can put in human readable and known information in order to get directly to a record without having to actually navigate in the Salesforce UI. Let's see how it looks. So here I'm in a Chrome browser, and Tomo/ is kind of a short link for our instance, but I was able to put a case ID, which is an 8-digit identifier that our agents are familiar with, in order to directly get there. Next, I want to look at a contact, so I go C/email address. That allows me to get directly to that contact record in Lightning Console. Next, I want to navigate to a custom application that we build that has the abbreviation CMC for Contact Management Console, and that, again, opens this custom tab that we have in our org. Lastly, I just want to see if General Kenobi has sent us any emails, so I type in hello there, and I get defaulted to the global search. And so all of this is powered by some magic on the URL forwarding in order to actually navigate to the tab. But all it is from a Lightning perspective is 1 custom tab and 1 custom component that are reading those URL parameters and then using the Lightning navigation APIs to navigate to the correct record. And so we knew that there's multiple use cases and we're adding new objects every day, so we didn't want to have to hard code those mappings and what that functionality is for all the queries that are actually being done on Apex on the back end. So we needed to find a way that we could build this in a way where we could actually make it scalable to future use cases without needing to go through our 2-week sprint code deployment processes. And so that's where configurability really comes into play for this. What we did is we designed a custom metadata object that allows these to be 100% configurable. The custom metadata stores some information like what shortcode it should do and what query should be ran with the information that's pulled from the URL. It also allows us to direct to a record versus a custom application, a Lightning component, or just a hard-coded URL. Having the setup shortcut has saved me countless hours already. Next, they're flexible, and they always try to land the user at least one step closer. If it can't find one specific record matching the query, it'll go to the global search with that query already ran, so that the user is hopefully just one click away from getting to their record. And then lastly, we actually built this custom component that you can see here that actually surfaces all that metadata to the users so that they can see all the links that are available to them, and we don't have to tell them about it. They can just learn about it. That's also accessible by /links in order to see that. So it gets a little meta. And so we were able to solve this business problem and this user problem of getting to records with a combination of configurability and Lightning Web Components. We had a configurable layer that allows our admins to set what the behavior should be, and then we use the Lightning Web Component in order to turn that configuration into a great interface for our users. So now I want to move to my next business problem, which is that business processes and the steps that teams need to follow in order to accomplish their tasks are typically documented and live outside of the Salesforce instance where they're working on them. And so at Google, we have to support 30 different teams, and so they all go through a process very much like this, where first the team has to design their processes, they have to create some documentation for it and communicate that out to their teams. Then their teams have to learn those procedures, and finally they get to apply them. However, all of this is typically separate from the tool that's actually being used, which is Salesforce. It might be in a Google Doc or some other tool that's used in order to actually craft this material and communicate it to users. And we thought that this was a really disjointed experience and that we could do a little bit better. So how do we solve this? Well, from the last example, we used configurability in LWC. Guess what? We did it again. Configurability in LWC is how we accomplish this. And so I would like to introduce you another custom feature called Playbooks, which are user-defined guided workflows. So with Playbooks, what we allow is we allow our users to define their team's processes as a Playbook template and have different action templates associated with that, which are the individual steps that their team needs to accomplish in order to complete that playbook. Next, using our LWC magic, we're surfacing those templates to users in the context in which they apply to, directly on the records that they're actually manipulating as part of these procedures. Users can then choose which playbooks to use and which not to use. And then in the back end, we're also capturing all of the change information and change data from them interacting with the playbooks so that later we can actually gain metrics around how long it takes to accomplish a certain playbook, where steps are getting blocked, or maybe what documentation needs to be updated to reflect the actual business practices. So let's take a look and see how we're actually able to empower our users, not our admin, to actually configure these playbooks. We have this concept that we call data as metadata. And so instead of using a custom metadata or a custom setting in order to control the configuration, what we do is we actually use custom objects that we can then use sharing rules, profiles, and permission sets to give our users the power to create and edit those records. This enables them to navigate complex schemas in a UI that they're already familiar with, because it's the same UI they're using for all this other standard and custom objects in our org as part of their day-to-day workflows. And this enables our complex schemas to really power very rich configuration layers that enable for grand functionality. So let's take a look and see what this data as metadata paradigm looks like for playbooks. So here we're going to actually define a playbook template. We're going to give it a name. And so this is actually the playbook template I used to create this presentation. Hopefully I followed it correctly. And so we give it a name, we say what team it is, and then we're saying that this applies to our service account object, which is a custom object in our instance. Then once the parent template is created, we go and create a new child record for an action template. This is an individual step for this playbook. And so you give it a name, you can sequence them, so you can say what order it is, you can make that order dependent and change how the playbook actually works for the users. And then once you have all that configured, you can review it and make sure that everything's good. You can also help add notes and help text and even links to other documentation that might be pre-existing for the users to see. But this is all using the standard interface of creating records. Where's the LWC? Well, this is actually how we're able to surface this configuration to our users. So here we're on a service account page, and it was hard to see, but there's a widget on the right-hand side of that page, and the user is able to see all the available playbooks. They click into that, it opens a sub-tab so they can review the template, and then once they add it, it actually deep clones that Playbook template so that there's an instance of that playbook specific to that record. This allows them to have a actually grandchild relationship with not only the playbook, but also the playbook actions specific to that record so that they can see the current progress in that context, not just a general playbook. Then we have some actions that actually allow you to update that record, that grandchild action record, in one click. There's no way you'd be able to configure this without some additional code. There's no way for an admin to create a UI where you can, with one click, update a pick list value on a grandchild record of a record. Typically, it will require navigating multiple related lists, opening many subtabs, and generally just not a great experience. With Lightning Web Components, what we were able to do is allow them to never have to leave their current task and where they're actually working, but if they need additional context, they can open just fewer subtabs so that they can see the exact steps that they need to do. So this is really powered by LWC and our configuration layer. We were able to build a UI that allows our business POCs to define their team processes, and using Lightning Web Components and some magic, we're able to actually surface those directly to our users. So I want to go over one more problem, and this is my favorite of the bunch. I'm a little biased because I built it, but one of the things that we find our users struggling with is that the actual information they need to be surfaced to them immediately can be difficult to configure, or it can be difficult to have it be dynamic based off of what they're actually working on in its current state. So let's take the example of the case lifecycle. With a new case coming in, you want information that's going to help you triage that case. That might be like what partner it's from, and then the content of the first email. But once you assign that case, that information is still important, but maybe that user actually wants some additional information like their past interactions or other details on the case record that's going to allow them to do their job a little bit more efficiently. Then once the case is finished, they're going to want to actually see the resolution metrics to see how fast they were able to resolve that case and how well their partner communication went. Now, this is possible to configure this using out-of-the-box solutions, but it's very tricky, typically requiring page layouts and permission sets and changes in profiles, but it doesn't really bode well for the change in just a single case's state along its life cycle. And so does anyone want to guess how we're able to solve this? Well, configurability in Lightning Web Components. And so let's take a look and see what we were able to do. It's called dynamic layouts. And so this is the last feature that I want to show that we were able to build with Lightning Web Components. And these are user-defined field layouts. And so here we have a user defining a new layout. They give that layout a title. They can say what object it supports, and this scales to all of our objects, custom and standard. They can say whether it's a platform level if they're an admin, or if they're a team specific, they can assign it to their team. Then again, they create a child record of that, saying which fields they want to add. They can add as many fields as they want because with the relational schema, there's no limits on how many child records you can have. We also have some magic that allows a type-ahead search on our schema metadata so that they don't have to know the API names in advance. They just need to know the field labels, and that will actually populate the API names for them. Really great experience for our teams to actually build these layouts. We also have some other customizations that allow them to configure when these will actually show. But let's see how we turn this configuration into actual UI with Lightning Web Components. So here below where it says case number is our highlights panel, which is powered by our dynamic layouts. Right now we have a new case in, and it has our standard case highlights. And we're adding some of these features. We're able to click edit, and it doesn't open the full page edit. It uses Lightning record edit form in order to dynamically show all these fields, including type-ahead search and all your pick list values. And the agent was able to actually update that case as seen. But let's say, oh, we realize that this is actually a high priority case. Once we change that, our rules engine actually activates a different dynamic layout that needs to be shown because the information needed to be input by the agent and seen by the agent is different for a high priority escalated case than it is just a standard case. This was done all in real time, no page refreshes, just by using Lightning Web Components and the proper wire and imperative apex methods based off of the record. And this is really amazing. There's only one custom component in this. Everything else is using out-of-the-box components provided by Salesforce in Lightning Web Components with the Lightning input, output, and edit fields. And does anyone want to take a guess on how long, like how many developer hours it took to POC this solution out? Anyone think it was more than 100? No? 50? Couple hands? 20? We were able to get this out in a POC in 2 hours, powered by Lightning Web Components. And that's something that in Aura we weren't able to do that quickly. We were able to build fast, but not that quickly. And so, again, we solved this using configurability and Lightning Web Components by building a configuration layer that powers our Lightning Web Components in order to provide rich interfaces for our users. And I want everyone to get out of this that Lightning is configurable, and it's not only the out-of-box solutions that can be configurable, but it can be your custom solutions as well. And in building this, you're going to build more scalable and more generic features that are actually going to better serve your org long-term. Because when you enable configurability, what it allows you to do is really empower your users and empower the business teams that don't have the technical resources or the technical know-how on how to change things by giving them simpler interfaces to actually make the changes they need as their business needs are changing. And so I kind of took you through some different levels of configurability in our org, from short links, which are admin configurable, all the way to dynamic layouts, which let users actually control their interface in a way that makes sense for the context of the record. And the reason why we have to build out these very configurable interfaces and these very configurable features is because our team needs to support the next 10x. I don't know the last time we were able to get a new resource just because we had more users or more teams using our instance. It just doesn't happen. So we need to be able to make sure that the features we build are going to be able to support all of the teams that are onboarding onto our instance without us growing in size, like our admin team growing in size. And so with that, I thank you, and let me pass off back to Kevin.
All right. Big round of applause for Tommy and Kyle. And I want to thank everybody, because this is a challenging time spot. We know other things that people probably want to go and give time to. But like I said, what was really great about the work that we've seen done at Google, like, this is one instance of Salesforce supporting 30 teams. And I know Tommy had mentioned it, but I don't know if it came out, but he said 75% of their core FTT team is here today at Dreamforce. That leaves one person back at Google, right? And then they have a team of, is it five contractors that help with implementation. And so the way they're able to scale, because nobody gets an extra developer just because you have 100 more users or 1,000 more users or 10,000 more users. That you look at the solutions here, and end users are brought into the equation. They can make these playbooks that actually go through and do things specific to their business. Historically, you'd have to have an admin go do this. You know, and I think across Google, there's actually many other Salesforce orgs that exist, and historically, the pattern's not been to use one instance. So I thought that was a lot of the power of this talk. And I'll leave you with this slide, because I know some people here are just starting to get into LWC. We've got some great trails out there. I recommend all of these trails. I've taken them. And we've just released some new ones on actually developing in open source as well. So if you're an Angular, or Vue, or React developer, like Kyle mentioned, he'd done some of this in the past, that content is geared for you to kind of come into the fold and learn how to build LWC off-platform as standalone applications. So I'd love for you to take a peek at this content. And we have a little bit of time. We saved a little bit of time to open up for questions. So if anyone has questions and wants to use the mic, I think we probably have about 5 or 6 minutes.
I'm intrigued by the architecture of multi-tenant on multi-tenant. And I'm imagining that some of those different categories up at the top have contacts and things like that that are kind of specific to each one. Are you using a technique like record types or multi-select pick lists or something, or how do you differentiate when someone shouldn't be accessing? Are you using the sharing model to figure that out?
Yeah, so a lot of it's, there's a lot of components, and we have to leverage everything in order to actually be able to do that. And so what we do is we have a custom object that designates what team it is, and then we actually use Apex sharing in order to programmatically give access to the proper user groups based off of that service record that gets associated to every other record within the instance, so that it's associated to their team. And then for some objects, different teams have different information they need or different fields they need, and so in those cases, we will use record types and page layouts in order to surface the correct information to those teams. But from a sharing model, it's all Apex sharing now. That was a big dev effort we made earlier this year in order to make sure that we didn't need to add more imperative sharing rules through configuration.
Great, okay, thanks.
Yeah, also one more thing to add on is that our data model is really driven by the high-level B2B partner lifecycle. And that's same. That's why our data model is same. We don't give different custom object to different team, because if we do that, it's really hard to build a shared configurability on top of it.
Great, thank you.
More questions? Yeah, you can come up.
You can come up if you'd like to.
Oh.
Go ahead.
So now that you guys have fully embraced this methodology, what is the biggest bottleneck in the whole life cycle of development, from you have a use case or a business scenario to the finished product? Now that you're building things more configurable and scalable.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more from business context perspective. So definitely it's a lot challenging because now we have 30. Historically, we onboarded 40 plus teams, and we're looking for 100 plus more, right? So again, it's a shared Salesforce work, and every time a new team came to us, we have to heavily educate them or set their expectations to say, this is how we do it. We can't give you everything you wanted, but we'll make sure your high priority one, as long as you can show us your business impact, we'll price at that. So without that upfront contract in place, we won't even onboard a team because we can't do that. That's from business perspective. Yeah.
Onboarding to the existing Salesforce org, or when there's new feature
for our
requests?
existing Salesforce org, yeah.
What about there's new feature requests, when you're considering building a new component?
Yeah, for new feature requests, essentially what we do is we look at that feature request, and usually it's very specific to that team's needs, and we try to see if we can actually abstract it out to a platform level feature. And so Playbooks example actually came from a feature request where someone's like, oh, I want to be told to do this step on a service account. And we're like, well, we could do that pretty quickly, but that's very team specific, and we don't want these team specific customizations in our org. We want to build features that are going to be more platform level and that every team can leverage in a way. And so that's kind of where that comes from. And it really helped kind of shape our data's metadata model, and along with our sharing rules that we have, really enable different teams to have different configuration and not be able to affect it. And that's one of the reasons why we use custom objects instead of custom metadata. Now I think it's possible, but historically it hasn't been possible to restrict access to records of custom metadata based off of permission sets. And so that allowed us to make sure that one team couldn't, the flights team could not affect the payments team's configuration. Historically, if we had to give them setup access, they could do that. And we could hope they not, but it's better just to not even allow it. So
I imagine that since you're not team specific, that it also makes it easier because you don't have to get in the weeds of their niche business processes. You can just step back and make it available for everyone.
Yes, and it's actually brought up interesting challenges where in onboarding, because we onboard and we try to help them with say custom fields and make sure that they're using our data model in a way that helps their business. But every once in a while there could be miscommunications on what their business actually needs versus their current processes. And so there are a couple of teams where we actually do more in-depth partnerships in order to get a deeper understanding so that we can better serve them. And then we also teach them how to use our features a little bit better so that they can actually take advantage of that and configure as they need. Cool.
Very interesting presentation. I really enjoyed the examples. My question comes in the if this then that engine that you're using. Yeah, and interested on where do you kind of cut the user's ability off there? Is it purely to design their own UI and plug certain fields in and out, or can they also trigger actions or field
So yeah,
actions?
so our we call it rules engine is our if this then that action, and so essentially what it does is it allows users to configure data as metadata in order to say there's criterias and actions that run, and then that's done in the trigger process on record updates. And so that one we kind of have locked down a little bit, where we need teams to kind of train on how to use that and its capabilities and do's and don'ts of that before we can open it up. But those actions are actually very, very broad, from just simply updating a field to creating new records to sending out emails. And so it's very complex. We could probably do an 1.5-hour session on it alone, honestly. You can feel free to talk to us, or our architect is also in the front row too. So.
Cool, thank you.
I think we're at time, but feel free to talk to us after.
Yeah, we can come on up.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.